Hey everyone, Glistening Dawn here. Well, what would you know? My Little Pony is finally back. And this time, the wait, not counting Tell Your Tale of course, was only a little over half the length of the legendary Season 4 to Season 5 travel. Great! Hasbro, for the love of all that's good in this world,
never do that again.
The first episode of Make Your Mark Chapter 4 following Bride of Woodstock, I would say more or less set up the tone for the rest of the chapter. After a long while of waiting, the cast returns to Canter Logic, which has been in disrepair for a while now. Thanks to the Tell Your Tale series, we knew it's been about a year since Magic first returned to Equestria, given holidays like Nightmare Night and Hearts and Hooves Day have already been celebrated at least once by the main group. The factory is an absolute mess at this point, which I suppose is reasonable given our established timetable in the series. After a quick Ghostbusters gag, Sunny and the group have the idea of refurbishing the old factory and as such split into 3 teams. Sunny and Izzy will go out and gather ideas from the community for what to do with the property, Zip will go continue her research on Twilight Sparkle's message, and Hitch and Pip will ensure the factory is clear to use. We start out with Zip, who is still focused on the message from Growing Pains. Unfortunately for her, Misty is spying on her yet again, and Zip fails to notice her.
Yet again.
Zip does have a bit of a pattern of getting so soaked into her research that she misses stuff right in front of her. Misty wasn't even fully concealed by that tree. Misty reports her findings to Opaline, and we get some clarification on Opaline's plans and how they work. You see, it turns out that in order to properly drain the Unity crystals and absorb the magic contained within them, Opaline must first be on a level of power equal to the crystals.
The only thing that could possibly drain the crystals permanently is an equal magical power.
Like an alicorn?
A fire alicorn.
This means some very interesting things and has essentially given us a way to see just how absurdly powerful Opaline truly is, and by extension, Sunny Star Scout. Look at it this way. Bear in mind that the Unity Crystal contains all the magic in the world. This was confirmed by Discord in IDW issue number 2, and backed by the fact that the Unity Crystal being restored in the first place is what distributed magic to everything. So long as harmony is preserved amongst ponykind, there will be magic. But the point is, the Unity Crystal contains all the magic in Equestria. All the magic in Equestria is the level of magic and power we have only seen in My Little Pony on one occasion, other than the Unity Crystal. Namely, in Friendship is Magic Season 4 finale, Twilight's Kingdom. As we all know, Lord T-Rex managed to take all the magic in Equestria, including that of the Alicorns, becoming a massive force that required the rainbow power forms to defeat. Given we are using the same source of power in the same amount, the Unity Crystal should be equal to Lord T-Rex at his most powerful. And given Opaline needs to be equal to the crystal to drain it, that means her peak is at the same level of power. Of course, this would mean that since Sunny Star Scout is able to match Opaline in battle and defeat her, despite Opaline having her power restored, she would be comparable to the Unity Crystal as well. In fact, given Sunny outright wins, she is arguably superior. In short, some comparisons of the sources of power and equalizations bring about the startling realization that Sunny Star Scout is equal to, if not superior, to Lord T-Rex at maximum power in G4. Is this a good thing? I'll leave that up to you. I'd imagine Sunny fans will find this amusing at least. Did the writers mean to do that? Probably not. They're just creating a story and world, not trying to give us a power level system. Unless, of course, they've been watching Dragon Ball again following that one little incident with Twilight Sparkle and Lord T-Rex with the lasers. Actually, I take what I said back. I could see them making a power level system. I expect a fanfic about Sunny Star Scout one-shotting Perfect Cell at some point. Regardless, we have seen some explanation for why Opaline is so fixated on Sparky now. Without him, she's not strong enough to get that Unity Crystal. As such, Misty's not getting out of capturing Sparky, much to her dismay. I appreciate that by this point we can see Misty has genuinely come to care for the dragon and is not particularly interested in carrying out the task. Given her frequent interactions with the group and Tell Your Tale, I'm willing to buy this development quite readily. Meanwhile, Sunny and Izzy are struggling. We'll go with that. The alternative, you could say they are up a creek without a paddle, or that it's game over, or that Sunny's idea was complete garbage. The civilians have a wide range of ideas for the factory, and a lot of them clash or contradict with one another. Izzy is hesitant to try and do everything, but Sunny is persistent about making it equal for everyone in town. And here we can see one of Sunny's greatest weaknesses come out of its hole to make problems. As good-natured as Sunny is, she can sometimes take her goals too far and get carried away. In this sense, she has a habit of getting so wound up in an idea that could be good for everyone that she misses the forest for the trees and gets blindsided by unexpected problems. Her drive is respectable, but she doesn't think things through very much. Sunny is so determined to make sure everything is equal for all parties involved that it can be impossible for things to get done productively, if at all. To an extent, it can be almost like evil Starlight Glimmer and her similar obsession with equality. Both of them pursue the ideal so hard it can be a bit problematic, which is, putting it rather lightly in Starlight's case, keeping the best possible outcomes on scales of others from coming out. Though, to Sunny's credit, her good nature makes it where she doesn't go the villain route, and her friends can usually pull her out of the hole.
I am loving this! It's just like in the Spooky Stable series when Esmeralda Gurlington searches for the old Winnie mansion looking for her great-grandpony's spirit. It is bone-chilling.
I must have missed that one.
No way! You have to read it.
While Sunny and Izzy are busy being mobbed by almost every single background and supporting character in the generation, Hitch and Pip are busy exploring the factory. Keeping in line with canon personality traits from Tell Your Tale, Pip is very much enjoying herself in the spooky atmosphere, and we actually learn that Pip is an avid reader. This is honestly a really great addition to her character. For quite some time, Pip has been seen as a fun-absorbed character who is glued to the screen all the time, but this gives her more development in her hobbies and her interests. Pip actually really likes reading books, and she isn't always on her phone or working at her salon. She has non-technical hobbies and interests as well. And this also adds more range and variety for her character to be used later. Now that we know Pip likes books, perhaps this can be used for future episodes. Perhaps Pip can visit a library or utilize things she's picked up from her books to inspire her career as an influencer. It's just an idea, of course, but this really does give writers and creators more to play with, and I really appreciate Pip getting fleshed out more like this. Given her technology-heavy character, you really wouldn't expect Pip Petals to be a book fan, but alas, here we are. Maybe down the road we'll see if there are any other genres she likes besides horror and expand on this idea further. It would be fun at least. But while Hitch and Pip are exploring, they've been getting followed by a mysterious figure. Well, it would be mysterious if it wasn't blatantly obvious who it was. I'd imagine everybody was able to figure out who it was instantly.
Come on out, you spooky spirits! We are only here to help! If you are here, give us a sign!
Sprout?
Sprout?
Yeah, it's Sprout. I'd imagine a good deal of folks are pleased to see him back, though. It's been quite some time since Sprout had a speaking role in Generation 5. He hasn't changed all that much. Sprout's still a pretty arrogant fellow in all regards, though he does seem to be trying to move on past the events of a new generation. Suffice to say, Hitch and Pip aren't exactly pleased with his deeds in that film, and his being responsible for the destruction of Sunny's lighthouse. Can't really say I blame them. He hasn't really apologized or done anything to make up for it, come to think of it. He does help them a little bit with the rats infesting the factory, but once it doesn't work out quickly, he just leaves. Personally, this doesn't bother me all too much. Not every character or villain is going to instantly heal face into some better person. The fact that Sprout is even speaking with Pip in a non-hostile way is some sign of growth, even if his ego is still a massive issue. We don't need every single My Little Pony antagonist to be like Sunset Shimmer and automatically change entirely. It's alright to have more characters like Discord or Trixie who take time to fully come around.
I feel pretty silly talking to a unicorn made of junk, but I just have to have some pony to talk to about Opaline.
Misty creating a toy to talk to is rather interesting. It's pretty obvious that she has ripped a page out of Izzy's playbook with Senior Butterscotch, but what does this imply? Such behavior is similar to when Pinkie Pie went crazy in Party of One out of loneliness and grief, a similar circumstance to Izzy's creation of the Butterscotch toys. Though, unlike Pinkie, Izzy has kept her contraptions around and still interacts with them on a frequent basis. This opens up a few lines of Dot's question. Is creating inanimate friends just part of unicorn culture? Do unicorns like to create items like this and just speak to them when they are facing problems? The thing is, we haven't seen characters like Alpha Beetle or Onyx do this, so that seems unlikely. Is Misty just that far at rock bottom that, like Izzy and Pinkie Pie, she has constructed a device to handle her loneliness, grief, and fears? We know she's been having it rough by this point, but does it run that deep? Has a small part of her gone crazy like Pinkie or Izzy? Or is it just a way to talk to herself and voice her thoughts in a playful way? And why do only Izzy and Misty do this? If they're the only ones who do this, has Izzy just been rubbing off on Misty, or introducing her to Butterscotch off screen, or is there a deeper meaning to all of this? There's actually a lot to ponder here. If I had to guess, I would personally say Misty's likely hit a bit of a breaking point, like Pinky and Izzy did. I wouldn't say she's gone total party of one mode, obviously, and I should hope not anyway, but there's definitely some level of a problem here. At the very least, it's likely that Misty is using her toy as a way to sift through her problems as best as possible like Pinkie Pie and Izzy did. Misty can't just run off to Maritime Bay and get help at any point, so it's likely she would resort to such a measure if she got desperate enough, and given how Opaline treats her, her desperation would be natural. That being said, at the rate we're going, Izzy and Misty are going to have enough imaginary friends running around to start a town.
And now I will share with you her wise sagebrush advice.
You can't please every pony, Izzy. Sometimes being a leader means making the tough decisions, Izzy.
We get to see one of Izzy's best traits at play here. Under that layer of looniness, Izzy is actually really smart, and is arguably one of the wisest members of the main cast. She's able to get Sunny back on track with a much more reasonable plan of handling the factory enhancements, and they work like a charm. It's also interesting to see more details about Izzy's past. We know that Izzy seems to have had good relationships with Alphabettal and other unicorns even before magic was restored. Knowing that Izzy was able to freely consult a town elder and get advice is another good indicator that her past wasn't quite as miserable as some have speculated. For all we know, her family life is still more or less a mystery, other than the occasionally mentioned aunt or uncle. But at least it seems she wasn't the total village outcast some thought before, even if she was a bit too perky for the others. Also, Izzy switching into different voices and accents to imitate others or be dramatic continues to be an amusing gag for her throughout the generation.
Finding new ways to fly with a little bit of confidence.
And a little bit of kindness.
We can make it fun.
The song for this episode, With Each Other, was pretty good. While the songs are consistently palatable throughout Generation 5, for me personally, I'd say Pip and Hitch are the best singers. Yes, the others have good songs, like the Trash song and fit right in for Izzy, but Pip and Hitch are usually the most consistent with their performances. The only other character who might rival them in that regard is Opaline.
What is taking so long, Misty?
Worry not, the irony is not lost on me there. Nothing wrong with a musically skilled villain, though. Anyway, the song is more or less just Hitch and Pip working together to pull a Pied Piper on the Flying Rats and encourage them to go back to Zephyr Heights. Throughout the song, the duo showcases a very solid chemistry and works together seamlessly, which I enjoy. I appreciate seeing how much they both care about Sparky and incorporating him into their stunts and tricks throughout, even as they perform themselves. It's just a really fun tune, and having these two characters just have fun was a good time. Probably my favorite song of the chapter, actually. Wrapping up the episode, the remodeling of the factory is complete, and everyone likes it. This is likely where some people will probably take fire at the episode, given it seems Sunny has taken no regard for property laws and whatnot, essentially stealing the factory from the Cloverleaf family. Normally, I would say this is a kid's show and that it doesn't detract from my enjoyment of the episode, but I am overanalyzing this, so we might as well check some laws. Really shot myself in the foot with that one, didn't I? Well, given the series is made in a Canadian studio, let's check Canadian property law to see how legal or illegal this all was. Seeing as Canada largely follows the laws of the United Kingdom, this particular matter can be settled under English land law. Given how the factory is used by the community now as a studio, for this to work, the property would have to be owned by the government and be public. Given Sunny and Izzy run this by the entire community and the town sheriff, this would be my guess. The property has been seized by the town's governing body and is now community-owned, so to speak. Given how loose Maritime Bay is with its community, the people getting to decide what to do with the lot really does not strike me as impossible. But would Maritime Bay be able to seize that property? Actually, it's quite possible. Keep in mind, the factory has been abandoned for a long time, and we know Canterlogic was used as a business, so they had to make some form of profit. Some of those profits would have to have gone towards paying off debts or
Mortgage.
should this debt fail to be paid, one option of paying it off would be foreclosure and selling. In this case, it's likely that Phyllis foreclosed the lot after the return of magic to keep from losing severe assets and finances, and the town picked it up. This would also explain why Phyllis and Sprout are fine after the loss of the business. Phyllis would have been able to use the finances afterwards and covered her debts, while Sprout picked up other lines of work. Given Cantor logic was useless following the end of suspicion amongst ponies and Magic's return, Phyllis defaulting on a mortgage is actually quite possible. The property just hadn't been used yet following this. And given Sprout's ego, it's likely he would have just maintained an attitude that he owned the place. It would also explain why Hitch is fine with all of this and is even investigating the factory in line with squatting code. If that factory is public property, it would be his job to evict such trespassers, even if he only wound up moving some rats with Pip. And finally, this would explain why Sunny said it belonged to all of them now. It quite literally did if it was public property. The studio would likely be covered by tax money should Sunny have gotten all of her legal files with the studio handled. And given Hitch was helping, it's reasonable to assume she did before she opened the studio up for business. As such, it's actually quite possible that the conversion into the studio was perfectly legal. Given Sunny got town approval and advice before doing all of this, the lengthy time period since the factory shut down, and property laws, there's actually a way for this to be legally possible, and Sprout was just being arrogant again. Perhaps I missed some legal points, but that's entirely possible as well. But from where I can tell, it's likely Sunny wasn't actually breaking any laws. But that's Top Remodel. Ultimately, this was a pretty good episode. We got to see the cast and crew be themselves, the return of Sprout was nice, and the comedy was pretty sound overall. I'd personally say Hitch and Pip had the most amusing parts and were most enjoyable, but all around I just had a good time watching this episode. And lore explanations for how Opaline and the Uni Crystal compare is also very much appreciated. Perhaps now I'll stop writing so many essays on things and focus my analysis here. I really should have been doing analysis here before. And while I'm at it, maybe pigs will fly, or even crazier, maybe we'll
Finally, get the full release of every new day is the best day ever.
Oh well, I'm probably overanalyzing.